In 1872, Congress set aside 5,500 square miles of wilderness for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. In 2025, nearly 4.8 million visitors tried to collect on that promise, and what they found were hour-long entrance queues, family trips exceeding $2,000, and a landscape still reeling from a billion-dollar flood. Yellowstone is losing something no reservation system or road repair can easily restore. The question is whether America's first national park was designed to survive what loving it this much actually costs. On March 1st, 1872, Congress drew a line around 5,500 square miles of rugged land in the American West and declared it off-limits to settlement, sale, or private exploitation. The Yellowstone National Park Protection Act called for a new kind of public space, a place preserved for the benefit and enjoyment of the people rather than for mining, logging, or farming. This was not wilderness to be conquered or divided, but a landscape to be protected as a national inheritance. The Hayden Geological Survey of 1871, led by Ferdinand V. Hayden and documented through the lens of William Henry Jackson, had returned with evidence that the region contained wonders found nowhere else on Earth: geysers that shot steam 100 feet in the air, rainbow-hued hot springs, and wildlife corridors stretching beyond the horizon. Early lawmakers and surveyors saw in Yellowstone something irreplaceable, a living record of the continent's geologic power and biological variety. The park's founding logic was simple and radical: preserve this place, unspoiled for generations yet unborn. Yellowstone's original mission was not recreation or tourism, but the lasting protection of a unique natural identity. Its creation set a moral baseline, the promise that some wild places would remain wild, no matter what pressures the future might bring. Rail lines carved through the northern Rockies in the early 1900s, delivering the first crowds to Yellowstone's gates. The Northern Pacific and Union Pacific Railroads built spur lines that carried city dwellers and adventurers alike to the park's southern entrance. By 1904, the Old Faithful Inn opened its doors, offering travelers a rustic yet grand place to stay within sight of the geysers. These lodges weren't just shelters. They turned the act of staying inside the park into an essential part of the experience, drawing guests to linger among the hot springs and forests. Road construction soon followed. The Grand Loop Road, a figure-8 highway linking the park's major attractions, transformed Yellowstone's vast interior from remote backcountry to a drivable itinerary. Families could circle from Old Faithful to Mammoth Hot Springs, canyon, and lake, all from the comfort of a Model T or, later, a post-war station wagon. After World War II, the rise of automobile ownership and the culture of the American road trip brought Yellowstone within reach of the middle class. Vacationers arrived by the thousands, parking at trailheads, snapping photos at geyser basins, and filling new campgrounds and visitor centers. What began as a sanctuary for the privileged few was now woven into the fabric of American family life, accessible to anyone with a car and a week to spare. By the 1960s, Yellowstone had become woven into the fabric of American family life. Summer meant piling into the car, rolling down the windows, and heading west in search of something both wild and familiar. Guidebooks and television specials painted the park's thermal features: Old Faithful, Mammoth Hot Springs, Grand Prismatic Spring, Yellowstone Lake, as essential stops, their names already part of the national vocabulary. Before ever seeing them in person, travelers could picture the eruption of Old Faithful, the rainbow colors of the hot springs, and the vast blue of the lake stretching to the horizon. The Grand Loop Road turned these wonders into a drivable circuit, making it possible to experience a landscape that once seemed unreachable. For many, the first glimpse of a bison or elk from the car window was a highlight, a story retold long after the trip ended. Wildlife encounters became part of family lore, a source of pride and excitement rather than a management challenge. The park's geysers and herds starred in countless vacation photo albums, reinforcing the sense that Yellowstone was a rite of passage, a place every American should see at least once. By the end of the 1970s, Yellowstone's image was larger than the experience itself. The idea of the park, shaped by decades of storytelling and shared memory, became a powerful draw. For millions, the journey was as much about confirming what they already believed as it was about discovery. The emotional attachment built during these years would make it difficult to rethink what Yellowstone could or should be in the decades to come. Yellowstone's reputation as a wild sanctuary now collides with the reality of almost 5 million annual recreation visits. By 2025, the park counted 4,762,988 visitor entries, a number that would have been unimaginable to those who first mapped its boundaries. The west entrance, once a gateway to open space, now sees lines of cars stretching for miles in the heart of summer. On Mondays and during late mornings, the wait to enter can top an hour, with traffic building as early as 7 in the morning and peaking between 9 and 11. For many, the first sight of Yellowstone is no longer a sweeping vista, but a sea of brake lights and a dashboard clock ticking away precious vacation hours. Inside the park, the flow of people follows a rhythm dictated less by wonder and more by congestion. The Grand Loop Road, designed to link the major landmarks, channels vehicles into predictable bottlenecks. Freedom to roam is replaced by the need to strategize which gate to use, how early to arrive, whether to risk a late start. The sense of discovery gives way to a schedule shaped by crowd patterns and traffic data. For today's visitor, the park's promise of escape is filtered through the logistics of mass tourism. The journey that once meant adventure now often means managing delays, tracking wait times, and hoping for a rare moment of solitude amid the crowd. A trip to Yellowstone now begins with a spreadsheet. The price of entry is no longer just the park gate, but the sum of every decision: where to sleep, how to get there, what to eat, and how long to stay. Inside the park, a standard room at the Old Faithful Inn starts at $205 a night, while a premium spot in the West Wing climbs to $424. Even gateway towns like West Yellowstone and Gardner, once havens for budget travelers, now see motel rates between $150 and $250 a night during summer. Holiday weekends can push prices even higher, leaving little room for last-minute deals. Getting to Yellowstone adds another layer. Round-trip flights into Bozeman, Jackson Hole, or Cody range from $350 to $600 per person. For a family of 4, airfare alone can match a month's rent or a mortgage payment. Rental cars and fuel tack on hundreds more before the first bison or geyser ever comes into view. The tally for a typical week, lodging, travel, meals, and entrance fees, lands between $2,000 and $2,500. For many families, this is the cost of a major appliance or several months of groceries. Planning a Yellowstone vacation now takes months of saving, searching for discounts, and weighing what can be left out. The park that once welcomed anyone with a car and a tent increasingly feels like a destination for those who can afford to plan far ahead and pay a premium for the experience. Securing a place to sleep in Yellowstone has become an ordeal of timing and luck. The park offers 5 reservable campgrounds: Bridge Bay, Canyon, Grant Village, Madison, and Fishing Bridge RV, each released for booking on a single day announced in February. On that morning, thousands of hopeful campers log in, fingers poised over keyboards. Madison, prized for its central location, disappears within minutes. For travelers aiming for a summer trip, the window to book can feel less like an invitation and more like a contest. Those who miss out face a scramble for alternatives, often months before their vacation even begins. First come, first served options like Mammoth Campground hold out the promise of spontaneity, but only for those willing to arrive before 8 a.m., sometimes earlier. By mid-morning, the last sites are claimed, and latecomers circle the lot or drive on, plans upended. The rhythm of a Yellowstone visit is now set by the reservation calendar as much as by the natural cycles of the park itself. Instead of wandering in and finding a spot, families pore over spreadsheets, set alarms for booking day, and build their trip around what's available rather than what's desired. Unlike other crowded parks, Yellowstone does not require a timed entry ticket for general admission. But for anyone hoping to camp inside the gates, flexibility is vanishing. The act of visiting has shifted from a journey of discovery to a test of planning, where the freedom to roam is replaced by a race against the clock and a limited supply of campsites. Wildlife encounters once defined the magic of Yellowstone, but now they often end with a ranger's warning or a citation. In May 2016, a newborn bison calf was loaded into the back of an SUV by visitors who thought they were helping. The calf, separated from its herd and imprinted on people, was later euthanized, an outcome that drew national attention and underscored the risks of crossing the 25-meter buffer meant to keep people and animals apart. Park rules are clear: stay at least 25 meters from all wildlife and 100 meters from bears and wolves. Still, some visitors treat these boundaries as suggestions, stepping close for a photo or a thrill. Yellowstone's bison population stands near 5,400, and their presence on the Grand Loop Road leads to daily traffic jams, long lines of idling cars as herds wander across pavement, blurring the line between wild and managed space. The same pattern plays out with elk, and more dangerously, with bears. In 2022 alone, 27 grizzlies died within the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, many after becoming habituated to food or human presence. Bears conditioned to people are nearly 3 times more likely to linger near roads and campsites, and far more likely to die in conflict. For rangers, wildlife management is no longer a rare emergency, but a daily enforcement job. Each summer brings new videos of tourists approaching animals, and each incident chips away at the idea of Yellowstone as an untouched refuge. The park's wild image survives, but only through constant reminders, fines, and the steady work of keeping people and animals apart. The boundary between wonder and harm has never been thinner. The greater Yellowstone ecosystem has always been shaped by extremes, but the last decade has brought a new kind of stress. Wildfire seasons now stretch longer into autumn, igniting forests that once cooled quickly after summer. Drought and reduced snowpack have changed the rhythm of rivers and springs. Water that once lingered as mountain snow now rushes away in early melt, leaving streams low and meadows dry by July. Elk herds, pressed by shifting vegetation, move higher and farther in search of forage. Wolves follow, their territories bending to the new shape of the land. Even the park's thermal features, fragile pools and geysers, depend on water levels that are no longer predictable. These changes make Yellowstone less forgiving of heavy summer use and more vulnerable to sudden disaster. On June 13, 2022, the warning signs gave way to crisis. Over a single 24-hour span, 7.5 to 9.5 inches of rain and rapid snowmelt poured into the northern valleys. Rivers surged past their banks, carving new channels and sweeping away everything in their path. The north entrance road between Gardner and Mammoth Hot Springs broke apart in multiple places, while the northeast entrance road to Cook City vanished under water and debris. Hundreds of motorists found themselves stranded. Park officials closed all entrances to general recreation, a move not seen in living memory during the busy season. The scale of the damage quickly outpaced any recent emergency. Engineers estimated recovery would cost over $1 billion, with permanent realignment of the north entrance road under environmental review well into 2026. For months, the only way in or out of northern Yellowstone was a temporary gravel detour, vulnerable to the next heavy rain. The flood exposed a hard truth. Yellowstone's future depends not just on managing crowds or maintaining old roads, but on adapting to a climate that no longer follows the old rules. For the first time, the park's vulnerability was no longer theoretical. It was carved into the land, visible in every washed-out bridge and empty trailhead. Yellowstone's backbone, its roads, bridges, lodges, and water systems, now carries the weight of more than a century of use and decades of deferred repair. The park's share of the National Park System's $24 billion maintenance backlog is staggering, with about $1.6 billion tied to Wyoming units alone. Each year, the Grand Loop Road and its offshoots demand resurfacing and bridge replacements, while historic visitor centers and aging water lines compete for limited funds. The 2022 flood only deepened these cracks, but the truth is, many of Yellowstone's facilities were already stretched thin long before disaster struck. keeping the park running falls to a workforce of roughly 780 permanent staff and 2,500 seasonal employees. Yet the people who keep the gates open, the trails clear, and the campgrounds safe often struggle to find a place to live. Local housing markets in gateway towns like West Yellowstone and Gardner have soared out of reach, driven by short-term rentals and high demand from tourists. Seasonal workers crowd into RVs, aging trailers, or accept long commutes from distant towns. In 2024, an anonymous $40 million gift funded new modular housing units, replacing outdated trailers and easing the shortage for park staff. Still, the challenge remains. Without affordable housing, Yellowstone risks losing the people who make every visit possible. Gateway communities too ride the edge between boom and bust. Their economies depend on summer crowds, yet rising property values and rental rates threaten to hollow out the year-round workforce. The park's future hinges not only on fixing crumbling infrastructure, but on whether it can keep enough hands on deck to welcome the next wave of visitors. A single photo can now set the course for thousands of Yellowstone trips. Instagram and TikTok turn the park's most photogenic corners, Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic Spring, the Upper Falls, into icons all over again, but this time the fame arrives before the visitor. Viral posts spotlight a handful of stops, concentrating demand until parking lots overflow and boardwalks feel more like city sidewalks. The rush to capture the same shot creates feedback. Crowds draw more crowds, and the sense of discovery fades into a checklist. The online traveler plans every move in advance, tracking live traffic updates, eruption predictions, and crowd alerts on their phone. Yellowstone's magic now competes with the promise of a perfect feed. Meanwhile, park officials monitor real-time traffic cameras and update dashboards, hoping to steer visitors toward quieter corners. Across the West, other parks respond with shuttle buses, reservation caps, and digital queue systems, making crowd management as much a part of the national park experience as the sites themselves. In this new era, Yellowstone is everywhere online, yet the feeling of stumbling on something wild, unplanned, and personal grows harder to find. Yellowstone remains a place where the Earth's forces are on open display. Its geyser basins, hot springs, and fumaroles form the world's largest concentration of geothermal features, drawing scientists from around the globe. Old Faithful's regular eruptions, the vivid rings of Grand Prismatic Spring, and the shifting terraces at Mammoth Hot Springs continue to reveal new insights about hydrothermal systems and the microbial life that thrives in extreme conditions. The greater Yellowstone ecosystem, stretching beyond the park's boundaries, is one of the last large, nearly intact temperate zone ecosystems in the lower 48 states. It supports free-ranging herds of bison, elk, and pronghorn, as well as apex predators like wolves and grizzly bears, species that have disappeared from most other regions. Long-term research here shapes national policy on wildlife corridors, fire management, and climate adaptation. Even as crowds and costs rise, Yellowstone endures as a living national treasure, a place where the forces of geology and evolution are still at work. Modernization plans, from the realignment of the North Entrance Road to the rollout of new visitor management tools, are now debated as forms of preservation rather than expansion. The central question is no longer whether Yellowstone will change, but whether those changes can safeguard what makes the park extraordinary. The stakes are clear. If Yellowstone loses its wildness, something irreplaceable will be gone, not just for visitors today, but for all those yet to come. Today, Yellowstone stands at a crossroads, straining under nearly 5 million annual visitors, rising costs, and the relentless impacts of climate extremes. The world's first national park now tests whether wildness and wonder can coexist with modern demand. As pressures mount, the choices made here will echo across every American landscape we hope to keep wild. The future of Yellowstone is a mirror for our own. Share your thoughts below.